So let's head to a pretty important game at Stamford Bridge this midweek. Chelsea at home once again after that win over Leeds. Not at their best, though, still conceding goals. Face an Everton side who were beaten by Crystal Palace and really haven't been great in their last 10 or 11 games. Desperate for points right now with the pressure mounting on their manager, Rafa Benitez. The last thing they want is a trip to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea are unbeaten in their last 26 home games against Everton. So it's not one of their favourite fixtures, let's be clear. And I don't think it's going to be a pretty evening for them either. Let's start on Chelsea, though, James. They have conceded more goals of late, twos and threes in the last few matches, very much unlike the sort of first 50 matches, first 45, 50 games under Thomas Tuchel. Why do you think they're conceding more?
I think they're missing Kante. I think, he's two footballers, essentially, when you haven't got the ball. And I think it's a real loss. I was at the game against Leeds, and they were able to sort of get past them and round the sides of them a little bit better than you would normally expect against Chelsea. Chelsea also didn't control the game as much as they would have liked. Maybe that's down to it being Leeds and, the style of play that they play. But Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Jorginho as a midfield too, I think you do lack a little bit of mobility when it comes to the defensive side of it. Jorginho dropping deep quite often. And yeah, they were sort of getting cut apart a little bit at times. So you kind of need Kante to get back into the side. Maybe someone like Kovacic as well. Saul's come in and not really played for Chelsea as of late. And I think the other side of it is it's kind of the game state as well. If you're not getting 2-3 goals up, or at least 2 goals up in games, then you make it harder for yourself and you give the opponents hope. I feel like this game in particular, you've got two teams here who are both missing their talisman. Of course, Romelu Lukaku's the greatest ever Premier League goal scorer for Everton, but he's a Chelsea player now and hasn't been able to kind of get back into the side properly as of yet. And I think that's what Chelsea really need, because there will be times where you can't just play this glorious football and you need to find another way. They have been able to do that via a couple of penalties at the weekend and a bit of good form from Mason Mount. But I feel like both teams are really struggling without that central striker to give them that different option. That's the whole point of Romelu Lukaku. That's why they spent that money on him, to bring him in and to make themselves, title winners this year. And we're now looking at the moment and you're thinking, if Lukaku can't get himself back in the team and can't get himself firing, are Chelsea still favourites for the Premier League? What do you think?
No. I think they need him at his absolute best to be favourites for the Premier League. That's nothing to do with the style of play. I still think, as I think mentioned recently, I still think they can win plenty of games without Romelu Lukaku, as they showed during his injury absence. But I think if you're going to, over 38 games, compete with the squad at Manchester City, I think Chelsea have a comparably good squad, and the quality of Liverpool, you need a player like Romelu Lukaku to really have an effect. The only reason that I think many people thought they were favourites is because they spent the £97.5 million to bring in an elite goal scorer. At the moment, it's not quite clicking for him. I agree with you on the midfield as well. It's not just Kante. Kovacic has been out as well. I think they are key players for Chelsea in terms of controlling the game. So I think that's going to be key. I also think, look, ahead of this game, Everton are beyond shaky. I just think the pressure is getting to a load of their players. The decision making is really, really poor. And even though I can blame individual players for some of their performances, yes, we know there are players missing. I would have expected a manager of Rafa Benitez's quality to have found a solution by now. They need to get back to basics. They need to start grinding out some results. They can't outplay teams. That's not going to happen. The quality of the squad isn't there. But I think they've been too open and too easy to play against, and Crystal Palace showed that at times. Some of the decision-making from some of the players at Everton, incredibly poor. You see players really isolated with no options, and you start to think this could be a really difficult period for Rafa Benitez. It already has been, but what will it mean for his future? Will he end up possibly leaving the club? I've said before, I think they need to maybe adjust their expectations slightly, because they're just not a great side right now. They haven't been able to spend a lot of money, and that means you're not going to be able to compete with some of the bigger teams in the Premier League. That being said, I still think they should be playing better than they are with the players that they have, including Demarai Gray, who I've got to say, even though they haven't spent a lot of money, for £1.7 million, is an absolute snip. He's been fantastic for them. He was their best player against Everton. He's been their best player in the last few games. And that probably, so far, It's the signing of the season in terms of pound for pound. What do you think?
Yeah, he made a bit of a mistake in the Crystal Palace game, but that's not what they bought him for. I think you're right. He's come in and done well. I think we all thought he had that talent. He hadn't really got that opportunity. He was often coming onto the pitch as a substitute for Leicester City. So a good move for him in his career. Coming back to the squad, as you were saying there, that, you know, when you bring in Townsend and Damari Gray, it's quite clear what you're wanting to do. You want two players who have got great ability on the ball and a great ability to put good crosses into the penalty area as well. And they wanted Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be the player in the box there. You know, you look at those two strikers, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Romelu Lukaku. Yes, they can hold up the ball, but they can also work the channels as well. And it means that you sort of take away a role from having a second striker up there. When you got someone like Rondon up there, it's just not the same. You know, he is just an out-and-out target man, and he's been off the pace so far. And you then bring in someone like Richarlison, who was struggling with his calf. Rafa Benitez was very annoyed with him as he came off because he was sulking a little bit as well. You know, you would hope that he would come in and maybe fulfill that role, but then once you do that, you're losing a bit of quality elsewhere. So it's a very difficult time for Rafa Benitez. I think he had a very clear plan in place, but he never expected Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be out as long as he has been. It looks like he could return for Boxing Day, so there's still a couple of games still to come, and it's a tough fixture list for Everton over the Christmas period as well. So it is a really dark time for Rafa Benitez and Everton right now, and I just can't see it getting any better in this game. Even that Arsenal game, really, if we're honest, it was a screamer from Damari Gray that got them over the line. It wasn't a fantastic performance from them. So going into this game, I expect Chelsea to win it. I expect them to win it comfortably. I expect the pressure to continue to grow against Everton, and I expect Everton to still hate going to Stamford Bridge. How do you see it panning out?
3-0 Chelsea. I think a comfortable win. I just don't see how Everton can control any parts of this game, to be perfectly honest. We know how difficult Chelsea make it for the opposition to play. Yes, they haven't been great of late. I think Leeds showed what you can do against them, a really high intensity game. I think Zenit St. Petersburg played very well, but that ended in a 3-3 draw. I just think Chelsea will have too much at home against Everton, who at the moment haven't shown anything like the level they need to be beating Chelsea.
Hi guys, James Alcott here from ESPN's Football Forecast. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and you want to check out more, make sure you subscribe to ESPN UK.